Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Jess Get Hired podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Fiesta George, and you're tuning in to a special series that we're calling Spill the Sauce, which is sponsored by my friends at the Spicy Gnome because we are here to spice up your life and your career. Today, we have a special guest with us. His name is Andrew Lewis. Andrew is a 9-year recruitment vet who has done everything from building a $2 million staffing agency to leading talent acquisition operations at startups and pretty much everything in between. He's currently leading the talent function at Worldly, which is a B2B climate tech company, and he is the founder of the Talent Operator newsletter. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jessica. Happy to be here.
Well, I am thrilled to have you. I want to get started. We're going to talk about something that's near and dear to both of our hearts, and that's the evolution of talent acquisition and what might lie ahead. So I'm excited for this conversation. So to kick us off, tell us a little bit more about your career journey and how you found your way into talent acquisition.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think like most folks in this industry, I didn't really strategically plan to become a recruiter or become a recruitment leader. In fact, coming out of college, I didn't even know what recruitment was. All I knew was I wanted to get a job that paid the bills, and I actually graduated with a degree in exercise science. And I was planning on going to physical therapy school. That was kind of the makeshift plan I had for myself. Just realized the competition was really high, and even just trying to get an entry-level job in that field out of college was a challenge. And so I eventually got fed up of saying, all right, I can't even get a $12 an hour job. I just need to find something. I have 5 years of professional experience in banking. It's not like I'm coming into this cold. And so long story short, I had a friend who had started working with Aerotech, which is a large staffing firm, and was like, hey, I think you'd like this. Check this out. Went in there, loved the vibe. They at that time, they were recruiting a lot of people coming out of college. And so it just was a fun, festive kind of work culture. And so I accepted a job from them without even really knowing what a recruiter did or what the role entailed. I was just like, this looks fun, and it's, going to pay more than anything else I can find, which, by the way, was not a lot, but it was enough for me at the time. And so, yeah, that's where it all started back in 2015. Got my feet wet in the staffing agency world, and then moved in-house with Hertz in the rental car industry and managed their Southwest high-volume recruiting efforts for about 3.5 years. At that time, I was also partnering with a local friend here who had started an executive search firm. So, I always joke that by day I was doing high volume recruiting with Hertz, and then by night I was learning the ins and outs of the executive search industry in the logistics and transportation space. Gave me a really well-rounded look at recruitment and what was possible, right? I mean, it's just so diverse. Right. And then from there, went on to launch and start a staffing agency franchise called Express Employment Professionals. They opened a Scottsdale location back in 2019, which I led from ground zero. Took it from no clients, no business, nothing to about 75 billing clients and just under 2 million in revenue in 2 years. And that was all through COVID as well. So it was quite a ride.
Wow, awesome.
And I really kind of hit this inflection point at that point in my career where I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Not particularly passionate about staffing. Really love the strategic side of recruitment, but just don't really know where to go. And ultimately decided that I wanted to take my career back in-house, and I wanted to step into talent acquisition leadership. And so my journey there started with FullScript back in 2021. I also was interested in tech, so I joined a company that was in that space. And then in 2022, I joined Worldly, who I'm currently with, as the first talent acquisition hire and first leadership hire in talent acquisition, with the focus on really building, the recruitment function from the ground up. And so that's a quick little journey through my career. I've kind of jumped back and forth between in-house and agency. I have a passion and a love for both sides, but where I'm at currently is on the in-house side.
Well, I love your journey because it kind of is similar to mine, and I didn't realize that you worked at Hertz. I worked for the competition enterprise. That's how I got my start in my career. And it's funny because the Aerotech people were trying to recruit the enterprise people, and we'd always be at the same job fairs together. So I've made a lot of friends with the Aerotech people, and I led talent acquisition for the Florida, Georgia, Mississippi area. And that's kind of how I started. And I've been Also, like you, I think we have similar stories. I've been in agency and I've been in in-house, and I've worked for like a number of different things. And now I'm here in private equity. So there's so many different avenues. That's what I love about talent acquisition, because it is always different no matter what industry you're into. The different hires that you get to do, it is a really, really fun and challenging career. But it has evolved over the years. So,
Hmm.
I don't even want to go down the road of how old you are, but back in the day, it was called personnel office, and then it evolved to staffing. And then when I was at Enterprise, I called regional recruiting manager.
Hmm.
And now it's evolved into talent acquisition. What do you think of those changes and how that industry has evolved? And what do you think is maybe next?
Yeah, I think some of it is semantics, right? I think we throw around titles and we change titles. I actually had a post about this recently on LinkedIn, how I'm not the biggest fan of the term talent acquisition, because I think our role encapsulates so much more than just the acquiring of talent. We're heading into a world where talent acquisition and recruitment in general, and recruiters are going to be expected to have a kind of dynamic skill set. I think for the longest time, and especially within the
Mhm.
last 5 to 10 years, now I don't have nearly the amount of experience that you do, but in my viewpoint, what I've seen is in the last 5 to 10 years, we've had people who have really been able to kind of just do one thing and do it really well. And that was enough for organizations to pay them a nice hefty salary, and everybody to live comfortably. But I think, especially in the startup space where I'm in, and you're in the VC world, so you might be seeing something similar. What is needed from recruiters and talent acquisition folks is a lot more. And I don't even know if companies
Mhm.
know this yet, but this is my hypothesis. I think this is where we're going. Recruiters are going to be marketers, they're going to be researchers, they're going to be salespeople in some ways, all wrapped into one. And I think we're entering this world now with AI and technology where we also need to be very tech enabled, and tech savvy, as far as knowing which tools to deploy when, how to optimize and become more efficient in our processes using technology, and really just being able to get more out of what one person can do than we have in the past. So I think we're entering this really interesting stage that I don't know that any of us really knows exactly how it's going to play out. But I do
Right.
know that the role in the world of talent acquisition is evolving before our eyes.
So, speaking of AI and technology, we've come a long way from paper applications to now digital processes. There are a few that are still trying to catch up to even
Hmm.
understanding how to introduce AI into the process. But, how do you think technology has transformed talent acquisition in general? Has it made it more efficient? And where do you think it's going to go?
I think we're trying, right? And I think there's a lot of really interesting technology out there right now that is trying to solve those problems. In some ways, I think it's created more bottlenecks and more challenges because, it doesn't necessarily, these platforms and these tools don't necessarily play nice with each other and create this
Right.
kind of nice streamlined workflow, which is ultimately what we want. And really, there's very few ATS platforms, in my opinion, out there that solve the problems that recruitment teams have very well. Um, but I think we're heading in the right direction, and I think there's a lot of companies that are trying to solve these problems. I'm very interested to see in the next few years, if there's going to be some sort of consolidation when it comes to these tools, and
Mhm.
someone creating this kind of like one-stop ecosystem, where all these kind of tools can create a nice workflow for recruitment teams. But I think AI is really interesting. I think we're very, very much still at the forefront. And I think no one really has the answers. If you go to any HR or TA conference, I joke about this with my peers, all you're going to hear about is AI, but no one's going to give you any actual information or like tactical information because we just don't know enough yet, right? There's
Right.
not enough to know. When you talked about like kind of the influx of inbound applicants coming in, through kind of like sourcing, screening, identifying, scoring candidates as they come in against job descriptions, that sort of thing. That's a real use case. The challenge there is obviously mitigating bias, right, and making sure that we're not causing any further bottlenecks. I've seen use cases of it in the process when it
Mhm.
comes to helping build out resources, job descriptions, interview questions, hiring manager enablement, all of that. AI has a strong use case there. We're seeing it with interview recording, right, and note taking in the interview process, which I don't know if you've ever used a note taker tool, but it actually is incredibly resourceful and helpful as far as like just
Yeah.
capturing all the data points. So I think there's some really interesting use cases for it. What I'm really interested to keep an eye on is
Hmm.
a couple things. One, the legislation and the legal side of things. I don't really know. There's been some laws passed in New York that are trying to kind of stop discrimination and bias coming about because of AI-based decision making.
Hmm.
But really, decision makers and lawmakers haven't really figured out a way to keep tabs on it yet. I'm also interested in keeping an eye on what I call the Walmart effect, which is,
Okay.
Walmart went through this process a few years ago, right, of basically pushing everyone to do automated checkouts, remove as many
Mhm.
cashiers as possible from the equation. And, 10, 15 years later, they're realizing that going that route has created kind of a whole new set of problems that require human intervention. We hear a lot about AI taking people's jobs. And while that may be true in some cases, I'm interested to see how it also creates other problems that humans need to step in and solve. So a lot of really interesting things.
Well, at the core, talent acquisition, human resources, and doing business in general needs a human touch. I mean, we do business with people that look like us, talk like us, you
Mm-hmm.
know, shop in the same areas as us. So, like, even hiring people, you have to have that human element to it that I don't think AI will ever replace. Even if you try to make it look like a real human being,
Yeah.
there's something about just having that connection. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges that talent acquisition professionals are currently facing today?
One of the biggest challenges that's being faced is just lack of bandwidth. And, when we look at the amount of applicants that are applying and the amount of qualified applicants and candidates that are available on the market right now, it creates a real bottleneck at the top of the process for recruiters and hiring teams because, you're getting hundreds, if not thousands of applicants for specialized roles, which in the past that hasn't been the case, right? I remember even in 2022, if I wanted to go find a specific type of marketing role or marketing personnel, we weren't getting any applicants. We had to go out and do some headhunting and find them, right? Now you can post a role like that and you're getting
Right.
hundreds and thousands of applicants. And so that's creating a real challenge because a lot of these TA teams are under resourced. Their teams have been slashed and cut. And now you have, just several people, or in some cases, one or two people trying to, manage this whole thing and also keeping tabs on a full rec load. So I think recruitment teams are severely undermanned and under-resourced currently. And that's where I think, technology and AI can step in and help solve some of those problems. I also think that the definition and the perception of recruitment and talent acquisition is changing. I don't even know if recruiters and talent acquisition folks realize that this is happening, but I think the conversation around how do we use and how do we build talent acquisition functions or teams, or how do we deploy recruitment strategy in our business without having to like build, tear down, and then rebuild a talent acquisition team from the ground up. So I think strategically speaking, there's some kind of fundamental changes in how talent acquisition is being viewed, how it's going to be deployed in the future. And I just think in general, as I alluded to earlier, the skill set needed to become kind of this bulletproof or future-proofed recruiter or talent acquisition professional is changing. I think we have to be comfortable with the idea that, look, I can't just come in and manage a small rec load or manage a rec load and source and do this one thing well.
Right.
I now have to manage stakeholder engagement. I need to be a market expert in my industry. I need to be dynamic on social media and building talent pipelines elsewhere. Like there's so many skills and so many things now we have to be comfortable with, taking on and saying, I need to become a specialist in this area, or at the very least, I need to be proficient in those areas.
Yeah, marketing is definitely something that I think has been added more and more into our wheelhouse because we are kind of in charge of employer branding and being able to communicate company culture when we talk to candidates. But what excites you the most about the future of T?
Well, I think for as scary as the future looks for some folks in TA, I would argue that it's also very exciting. We're in the midst of this kind of revolution or evolution of the space. And I want to be one of those people that's at the forefront of it. I want to, help lead the way any way that I can. What I'm most excited about is understanding this technology better, specifically AI, and what use cases it has, how it can help us become more efficient and more optimized in what we do, how it can create spaces for us to have better human interactions and better human experiences. I think that's really exciting. I'm also really excited to see specifically in the startup space, like how are talent teams deployed? Because I think there's a huge opportunity to use, folks that are in talent acquisition and use them in other parts of the talent lifecycle, whether that's pre-boarding, onboarding, talent management, culture, managing culture initiatives, whatever it may be. I think there's a use case to deploy your talent people elsewhere and have them kind of succeed and become great ambassadors for the company. And I'm just really excited to see how things change with recruitment in general. AI and technology is also going to create some sort of race to the bottom when it comes to skills and and recruitment processes. And so I want to be one of those people, and I'm interested in finding those people who do the opposite, right? They become really, really good at using these tools and not leaning on these tools to create results.
Well, Andrew, I think we can probably talk about this subject forever. And I would love to have you back. I'm so glad that we connected. And I know you've got a couple of things happening in your neck of the woods in the future that I would love for you to promote. So before we sign off, where can listeners find you and what is next for you?
Yeah, so I'm most active on LinkedIn. You know this, I post pretty regularly and I like to share my thoughts and my perspective there. It's a little bit of a journal for me. I have a newsletter called the Talent Operator Newsletter, which is essentially an extended version of those thoughts. And I like to get very tactical and, really like to talk about frameworks and perspectives and ways to approach specific problems in recruitment and talent acquisition. So if you're somebody that wants to level up your tool chest and your skill set, that's a good resource for you, hopefully. You can also find me on X. I have the similar handle, Talent Operator. Don't post there quite as often, but between LinkedIn and X, that's where I spend a majority of my time. Any other events or speaking engagements or anything else that I'm involved in, you can kind of find out by following me there.
Okay. And don't we have a podcast coming soon?
I didn't want to mention it because it's still in development, but yes, yeah, we are going to be releasing the Talent Operator
I'm here to
newsletter
push you.
and
and
podcast. Yeah. So both of those will kind of work in tandem with each other.
Okay. Well, we'll be waiting patiently for your podcast. People can go subscribe to your newsletter. I'll make sure we share that in the show notes, and I'll put a link to your LinkedIn. But I want to thank everyone for tuning in to another episode of the Jess Get Hired podcast. If you enjoyed today's discussion, be sure you subscribe, go follow Andrew, go follow me, leave a review on iTunes and all of your favorite platforms. But until next time, keep striving for excellence in your careers. Stay tuned for more episodes where we spill the sauce on all things. Take care. Hey everyone, my name is Jessica. Are you ready to elevate your talent acquisition game and connect with top HR leaders across multiple industries? If you are, you don't want to miss the Meeting of the Minds conference on September 10th and 11th in Dallas, Texas. This event is brought to you by Self Opportunity and is one of the largest gatherings of VPs of HR, directors of talent acquisition, and other people in the talent and recruiting space just like you. Don't miss your chance to collaborate, share best practices, and gain invaluable insights. You can be a part of a conversation that is going to shape the future of talent acquisition. Registration is now open. Head over to motmcon.com. See you there.